Forest Stewardship in a new exhibit. I hope you can hear me. We're actually talking through the glass. Our friend, the dwarf crocodile. 49 years old, and he's about a couple of miles. Got a black one and a white one. Delightful. We thank them for their sacrifice. And here we go. All right, Lyle, first one. Don't be alarmed, fans, if I jump a little bit. It always is a little startling. Over here, Lyle. That's one mouse. Delightful. All right, let's see if we can toss in the second one. Oh, that was a little sad. It's behind you here. Nice. While we enjoy this clip of Lyle snacking, I'm going to come around the audience. Thank you, Lyle. I'm sure you got the sound effects of me locking that door. So it is actually in the zoo, so we had some guests watching Lyle's feed. I don't know if you can see my face. The lighting's not great out here, hard to catch it. But so, like I said, Lyle is 49 years old. These animals can live to up to 70, even 100 years. So Lyle is only about middle-aged for these crocodiles. When you come to the zoo, you may not see Lyle very often. He's actually one of our trickier residents, so we've got him really active right now because we just fed him. One of his favorite things to do is to eat. But most of the time when you come to Franklin Park Zoo, you'll either not see Lyle because he's hiding in the back, or sometimes he'll be resting on his rock right there. Dwarf crocs, they are from sub-Saharan Africa, countries such as Gambia, Liberia, Nigeria, and they live in swamps, mangrove streams. So this is kind of a nice forested, shady place for Lyle to be. You can see those little teeth hanging out of the water. One of the most awesome things about working with Lyle is when his teeth fall out, which is pretty often. They're pretty cool to see up close and personal. Lyle's looking very photogenic today. Some of you may recognize Lyle's name. He was recently featured in a motion picture. I'm just kidding, it wasn't him. Also, I think it was CGI. But his name, so I think it's based off some books called Lyle Crocodile, which is about a crocodile that lives in New York City. And like I said, they just made a feature film about him. So he likes to cling to that 15 minutes of fame, but I've tried to tell him I don't think it's about him. But he is pretty cool here at Franklin Park Zoo. He's our only crocodile here at Franklin Park, which is awesome. Those of you who are up north may have seen the alligators at Stone Zoo. Lyle is obviously smaller, and he's a crocodile. A lot of people have a hard time telling the difference between alligators and crocodiles. It's not an exact science, but crocodiles have a slightly more V-shaped nose, as well as you tend to be able to see their teeth when their mouths are closed, like Lyle is showing us right now, his dental work. Aggressive in behavior. Obviously, this guy is a dwarf, so he's a little different compared to the others. When I say dwarf, I don't mean that he has dwarfism. I mean this is an actual species of crocodile called dwarf crocodile. They're the smallest crocodilians in the world. Lyle is about a little under 6 feet long, which I'm only 5'3", so he's a little bit bigger than me. And he weighs about 50 pounds, which is pretty impressive. He loves hanging out in the water. Crocodiles actually have secondary eyelids that allow them to close their eyes when they're underwater so they can see when they're moving. And they have a little valve at the back of their throat that allows them to swim without swallowing water when their mouths are open. So you did see that Lyle munched on his snack while in the water. Don't worry, he didn't swallow too much pool water. This habitat is really fun too because we have a heat rock for Lyle, which is that center section in the back. You can't really tell, it just looks like a rock. But back there is a heated space for him so he can warm up if he needs to. Compared to mammals, which we are, which can regulate our body on our own, our body heat on our own. Lyle has to heat up from sources outside of him. So it's nice to have the heat rock, especially in these cold January months. I want to take any questions. If you haven't already, you can put questions in the chat below for Zoo to You Facebook Live.
Late arrival wants to know what we fed him.
Oh, what we fed him. So for those of you who are just arriving, we fed Lyle a pair of mice right at the beginning of the video. I was actually in the exhibit with him. The mice are previously dead and frozen. We get them from a mouse supplier. Just like you get Uber Eats, we get our mice delivered in the mail. And Lyle loves them. He actually only gets fed every 2 weeks, or it's about every 2 weeks. That's pretty regular for reptiles. The snakes also only get fed once a week. Kind of depends on what they need, but he's always very enthusiastic about eating. And we're giving him a special treat today, which was the 2 small mice. Generally, he gets a rat about that big, which compared to Tom the anaconda, who you may have seen in previous videos, Tom gets a rat that's about this big. So, pretty impressive.
Helena wants to know how long dwarf crocodiles grow for.
Good question, Helena. This is up to 100 years. On our sign here, it says up to 70, but I did a little research before, and they can also live up to 100. So we're going to call him early in his years, only middle-aged pretty much. The minimum of the range was about 50, so for old age of crocodiles. So he's looking good, and he's in great health. He has his physical exams just like all the other animals in the zoo have with our brilliant zoo hospital staff. Because he's a reptile, we have his exam a little less frequently than we would necessarily the mammals. It's also a bit of a process to get him caught up because obviously he's a tough guy. But he had an exam within the last 2 years, and that was when we were able to measure him, get blood work, do radiographs / x-rays. So he's looking good, almost 50 and looking fine.
Martha commented that she's never seen him move. Is there something about reptiles or something that they're...
Martha said she never sees him move. Lyle is a pretty quiet guy. So in the wild, obviously, these animals would be sort of moving around looking for food, but also that's part of their ability to hunt is their stealth and their speed. If you scroll back to the beginning of the video, you can see that Lyle pounced on that mouse, but he didn't want to give himself away, even though the mouse was already dead. In the wild, he wouldn't want to give himself away. And like Martha said, and I said earlier, sometimes it's hard to see him in this habitat. He tends to hide out in the back. Dwarf crocodiles do burrow in the wild, so I think he kind of views that back area as a nice safe place where he can hide out. But like I said, he does choose to sort of sit on different rocks. I have heard guests say they thought he was a statue at some points because he's so still. But that's just part of his charm and grace.
And how big is this exhibit?
This habitat goes back farther than you would think, so it shares a wall with the tamarin habitat, which is right next to us, and he's got a basin, a pool basin that's back there that he can totally submerge. We look for him every day as part of our daily care, but sometimes it's really hard to find him unless you go in. There's also a steps, which is where if you scroll back you'll have seen me disappear into. That's our supplies for him, his pool net, his feeding tongs. Obviously, even though he's a dwarf, he's still very powerful. He's got very powerful jaws, big teeth, and a tough guy attitude. So you'll see I fed him with tongs, and we always go in holding an implement just to make sure if anything goes wrong, he's so fast, we have something to protect ourselves. Usually just a little bamboo stick to keep him at bay. Though, like I said, he's not one to pounce. He sort of just sits there. Any other questions on Facebook Live? Lyle, do you have anything to say? Pretty standard. I would love to tell you guys also about something you can do to help save animals in the wild like Lyle. One of the easy things you can do is always coming to your local zoo and learning about the animals that we have here in our habitats. Another thing that Lyle is specifically close to his chest, the passion he has, is conservation. So in Sub-Saharan Africa, where these animals are found, one of the biggest threats is sort of clear cutting and habitat loss. Like I said, he lives in swamps and mangroves. His species is considered vulnerable, so we can always be thinking about how we can help save habitat here in the United States and in other countries, and Zoo New England is part of those efforts every day. So come on and visit us. Come see Lyle. He says go see the movie, but like I said, it's not really about him, just his namesake. And next time you come, now you know at least what it looks like when Lyle moves, and you know he's not a statue. See you next.